Yeah, I mean, I think I communicate mostly with probably like NECA and player leadership more than anything, and I try to do the best I can. I always want to be respectful of everybody and treat everybody with kindness. Like I think that's really important, but at the same time, relationships are really important to me. And
somewhere between Friday night and Monday morning, something strange happened. ESPN had just dropped a glossy 2.5-hour documentary, 6 full episodes, weeks of promotion, a red carpet rollout timed perfectly with WNBA All-Star Weekend. And then, silence. Not criticism, not praise, just nothing. No reviews, no recaps, no real conversation. For a project this size, backed by ESPN, produced with uninterrupted, and tied to Dick's Sporting Goods' own production studio, that kind of silence doesn't happen by accident. And that silence is exactly where our story begins. The documentary is called Life in the W. It follows 3 of the WNBA's biggest names through the 2025 season: A'ja Wilson, Nafisa Collier, and Dawanna Borna. 3 legends, 3 future Hall of Famers. On paper, it's exactly the kind of story ESPN loves to tell, the rise of a league finally getting its moment in the sun. But here's the problem. The most talked about player in the sport isn't in it. Not a cameo, not a passing mention. Nothing. Caitlin Clark, the player whose jersey sales, TV ratings, and ticket prices have single-handedly rewritten the WNBA's business model, is completely absent from a documentary about the WNBA's groundbreaking year. And nobody will explain why. According to reporting from Outkick, the outlet reached out to ESPN back on July 14th, asking to speak with the people behind the series, showrunner Tristan Williams and ESPN Originals producer Lindsay Rovegno. The very next day, a publicist offered up both of them for an interview. It looked like a green light. Outkick said yes immediately, asked for scheduling, even requested an early screening. Then came the wait. Days turned into more than a week. No times offered. No screener sent. No follow-up at all. An interview that was promised simply evaporated. Now, maybe that's a scheduling mix-up. Maybe it's nothing. But when the subject is this sensitive, silence starts to sound like an answer of its own. Because here's the thing about Caitlin Clark. Her presence changes the gravity of any room she's in. Wilson is a 2-time MVP. Collier is one of the most dominant two-way players the league has ever seen. Borna has been to championship after championship. These are legitimate, decorated stars. But put Clark on screen next to them, even for 30 seconds, and something happens. The story stops being about them. Her quotes become the headline. Her expressions become the meme. Her presence pulls the gravitational center of the entire narrative toward her, whether the filmmakers want that or not. That might not be fair to Wilson, Collier, or Borna. But according to the commentary circulating around this story, it's the reality of where the WNBA is right now, a league whose biggest financial engine also happens to be its most polarizing storyline. And Clark isn't the only notable absence. Breanna Stewart, a decorated former MVP and a vice president of the Players Union, is also missing entirely. So is Paige Bueckers, the #1 overall pick in the 2025 draft, a player many expected to be a centerpiece of any real look at the league's future. Once you notice who isn't there, a pattern starts to form. Wilson, Collier, and Borna are all black. Clark and Stewart are white. Bueckers, also white, was seemingly custom-built for this kind of documentary, a rookie phenom stepping into a spotlight-hungry league, and she didn't make the cut either. Commentators like Outkick and Dakich have pointed to this pattern as evidence of something deeper, arguing that petty rivalries and even racial and gender bias have shaped the way media and the league itself talk about Clark. Dakich's argument is blunt. 30 years into its existence, the WNBA has a generational commercial phenomenon sitting right in front of it, and instead of embracing that momentum, parts of the ecosystem around the league keep finding ways to sideline her. Now, to be fair, this is one interpretation, not a confirmed explanation. ESPN hasn't issued a statement addressing why Clark, Stewart, or Bueckers were excluded. The producers haven't confirmed or denied any deliberate editorial decision. What we have is a documentary with conspicuous omissions, a cancelled interview, and a media landscape rushing to fill in the blanks. But context matters here too. This isn't happening in a vacuum. For over a year now, Clark's rise has been tangled up in exactly this kind of tension. She's been credited with transforming WNBA viewership overnight, pulling in record-breaking ratings, selling out arenas the league hadn't filled in years, and turning casual fans into obsessive ones. But that same spotlight has also made her a lightning rod. Debates over how officials treat her on the court. Debates over how rival players talk about her. Debates over whether the media builds her up too much or tears her down unfairly. Every single time, the conversation seems to circle back to the same question: is women's basketball ready for a star this big? And now, that question has bled into a documentary that was supposed to celebrate the league's rise. Think about what that means. ESPN had the chance to tell the defining story of women's basketball in 2025, a story that, whether people like it or not, has Caitlin Clark's fingerprints all over its commercial explosion. Instead, they built a narrative that carefully roots around her. Whether that was caution, politics, internal disagreements, or simply creative freedom, we don't know. What we do know is that the timing, the silence, and the cancelled interviews have created exactly the kind of vacuum where speculation thrives. And here's the twist that makes this whole story sting even more. Documentaries like this are supposed to do one thing above all else: capture the truth of a moment before it slips away. Life in the W was pitched as the definitive record of a groundbreaking year for the WNBA. But if the single most transformative figure in that year's story is missing from the record entirely, what exactly does that documentary actually preserve? Maybe it's an honest curation choice. Maybe it's something more complicated. But one thing is certain. In trying to avoid the Caitlin Clark conversation, ESPN's documentary may have accidentally become part of it. And until someone from that production actually sits down and explains the decision, the mystery isn't going away. If anything, the silence is only making people ask louder. So here's the real question hanging over all of this. Was Caitlin Clark left out of life in the W by accident, or was she deliberately written out of her own era? Right now, nobody in charge is answering. And that, more than anything else, is the story.